Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you're trying to get your head around the absolute cutting edge of theoretical science, maybe prepping for a meeting, or honestly, if you just want that aha moment that makes you rethink, well, everything,
Yeah.
then you are definitely in the right place today.
Absolutely. Because today we are diving deep, really deep, into a framework that it basically kicks the conservation of energy off its pedestal.
It does.
Oh.
We're talking about the Unified Coherence Theory, or UCT, from Philip Lillian. It's this huge, ambitious synthesis trying to pull together physics, math, cosmology, even consciousness.
Yeah.
All under one single principle.
That's the goal, and it's a massive one.
So our mission today really is to unpack this. We need to understand this idea where the fundamental constant isn't energy, but coherence. What does that even mean?
Right. We want to give you the shortcuts, the key insights, so you can see how UCT redefines things we take for granted. Mass, time, gravity, it's a whole new model.
It sounds like a complete restructuring of reality, basically.
That's not exaggerating. The core claim is that coherence is the ontological ground.
Right.
Everything else. It just flows from that. It's derivative.
Okay, let's start right there at the foundation. Physics, for what, over a century? It's been built on the conservation of energy. Can't be created, can't be destroyed.
Bedrock law.
And UCT just says, nope, that's not the most fundamental law. So what is coherence in this context? Why is it the bedrock instead?
This is the absolute key shift. Coherence here isn't just, like two laser beams in phase. It's not just alignment.
Okay.
Lillian defines it as the actual substance of reality, the irreducible foundation, the underlying organizing principle of everything that exists. It's not a property within the universe.
It is the universe.
Exactly. Think of it as the ultimate integrated resonant structure of, well, everything. The sort of ground state of organization itself.
Trying to picture that. Is it like some kind of perfect underlying field? Like an ether, but structured?
That's a decent starting point, yeah. All the particles, all the fields, consciousness included, they're just temporary wrinkles or patterns within this single universal coherence.
Modulations in the field?
Modulations, yeah, or differentiated expressions. And because it's the foundation, the absolute base layer, it has to obey the most fundamental law, the principle of conservation of coherence.
Meaning can't be created or destroyed, only moved around.
Precisely. It's always conserved, perpetually. So when we measure something like energy changing or mass appearing, UCT says that's just coherence being redistributed.
Moves from one place or form to another.
Across different scales, yeah. And the carrier, the thing that actually moves it, that allows for this transformation, that's resonance.
Resonance, like vibrations.
Resonance is the dynamic action, the bridge, you could say. It lets coherence shift between forms, between scales, without ever being lost overall. It's the mechanism of change.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit here. We measure energy conservation. It works in our experiments, right?
Yeah.
So if UCT says that's secondary, what happens to all that physics?
That's a fair question. UCT argues energy conservation isn't fundamental, it's emergent.
Emergent, meaning?
Meaning it appears to be true under certain conditions, within certain limits. It's a localized effect of the deeper coherence conservation principle. When you see energy being conserved in, say, a closed system, you're just seeing coherence maintaining its structure within that specific limited form of resonance. You're looking at a subset of the bigger picture. So mass, energy, information, time, they're all expressions of coherence. They're effects. Coherence is the cause.
Wow. Okay, that inversion is huge. Which brings us to this idea of generative ontology.
Yeah.
We usually think things that are stable stuff, that's primary.
Right. Objects, particles.
But UCT flips it. It says becoming is the fundamental thing.
Yes, becoming. That's the ultimate substrate, the irreducible dynamic, reservoir of potential coherence. Lillian calls it zetanauts.
Zia, the pregnant void. I saw that phrase. Sounds almost mystical.
It does, but the term is specific. It implies it's not just empty chaos, like some ideas of quantum foam. It's structured potential. It's inherently dynamic, ready to unfold coherence, but infinite in its potential. It's the engine room.
Okay, so if Z is this potential, this becoming,
yeah,
then what's being? What are the particles, the tables, the chairs?
Being is just a temporary reduction, a crystallized coherence pattern.
Crystallized.
Yeah, imagine the ocean that's becoming pure dynamic coherence. An ice crystal forms on it that's being. It's stable for a while, right?
Right.
But it's just a temporary, localized reduction of the ocean's potential. It's a residue of the flow. And fundamentally, compared to the whole ocean, that crystal is unstable.
And it melts back eventually.
Exactly, which leads to that cosmic renewal cycle idea. Being isn't the end state. Those temporary patterns, those crystals, they get resymmetrized. Dissolved back, yeah. Their coherence potential returns to the substrate, back to becoming. The universe is constantly sort of breathing, recycling itself, which is why UCT argues it avoids just fading out into heat death.
Okay, that's a big claim we'll need to return to. But before the heavy math, Lillian lays out these 4 ontological irreducibilities. Not axioms, but necessary conditions.
Yeah, preformal conditions, things that existence must have, basically, for reality to even unfold. They're the absolute fundamentals from which everything else, including formal math, has to be derived.
And they are?
Coherence, obviously, the substance itself. Then symmetry, asymmetry, the dynamic tension, the potential for order and difference. Third, resonance, the carrier, the mediator. And fourth, the observer, consciousness.
Wait, the observer is a fundamental irreducible condition, not something that just emerges later from complex brains.
According to UCT, yes. Existence requires an observer function because observation, the act of reducing potential to actuality, is a necessary part of the dynamic. You can't have a physical reality manifest without something performing that reduction.
So the observer isn't just watching the show. They're part of the machinery making the show happen.
That's the implication. The observer role is baked in from the start, which leads us perfectly into how these transformations actually work.
Okay, so reality is about coherence being conserved, but constantly transformed and redistributed. And UCT says this happens through an interplay of 3 forces, operators: symmetry, asymmetry, and resonance.
Operators is the better term. They're defined as actual physical operators acting on the coherence field.
Sounds a little like old philosophy, balance, duality.
There are echoes, maybe, but the claim here is mathematical rigor. These aren't just concepts. They're functions embedded in the geometry.
Okay, define the first 2, the tension pair.
Right, so symmetry is the coherence-enhancing principle. It integrates, it restores unity, it amplifies coherence. Think of it as the force pulling things together, making them more whole. UCT calls it the SPO, symmetry coherence operator.
SPO, got it. And asymmetry.
That's the coherence-reducing principle, the ARO, asymmetry resonance operator. It fragments, it differentiates, it creates discrete forms, individuality. It pulls things apart into distinct bits.
SPO integrates, ARO fragments.
Exactly. There are opposing directional forces within the coherence field itself.
And resonance mediates between them. It's the meta operator.
Resonance is the balancer. It ensures that when ARO fragments something, the coherence isn't lost, it's just transformed and conserved via resonance. It keeps the whole system dynamic, preventing it from getting stuck in either pure unity or pure fragmentation. It's the engine of evolution, really.
Now, you mentioned the ARO, the asymmetry resonance operator. UCT identifies this with the observer.
Yes. The ARO is the observer function. Its role is universal reduction. It's the engine of actuality.
How so?
It takes that infinite potential coherence in Z, the substrate of becoming, and it forces a collapse into a discrete actual outcome. It's the act of selection.
Like collapsing the wave function in quantum mechanics.
Precisely. That's the ARO in action at the quantum level. It reduces the superposition, all the possibilities, down to one definite state upon measurement or observation.
So every time I perceive something, I focus on one thing out of all the noise. That's my ARO function reducing potential.
That's the idea. Biologically, perception is the ARO at work. Your senses take in a flood of potential patterns, and your perceptual system, acting as ARO, selects and actualizes one coherent pattern. That's a cup. That's a bird singing. It creates the discrete parts of our experience.
Okay. If ARO fragments things, creates the parts, then the counterbalance must be the SDO, the symmetry coherence operator. And you said UCT identifies this with consciousness.
Yes, SEO is consciousness, or at least the fundamental mechanism underlying it. Its function is unity, integration. It restores, enhances, amplifies coherence. If ARO breaks the world into bits.
SEO puts them back together into a whole experience.
Exactly. Think about seeing a tree. Your eyes might register points of light, color, edges, fragmented data, right? That's the ARO processed input. But your consciousness, the SCO function, integrates all that instantly into the unified single experience of tree.
And SEO is also working at a deeper level, like in biology, keeping things ordered.
Absolutely. It's the engine of negentropy, the force that maintains order against decay. Entropy, the tendency towards disorder and fragmentation, that's like the constant pull of ARO. The SCO is the essential counterforce.
Fighting back against chaos.
It integrates molecules into cells, cells into tissues, maintains the incredible biological order against the constant thermodynamic pressure to fall apart. It sustains life's coherence.
So the fundamental tension in reality, and in us, is between the ARO observation fragmenting potential into actual bits and the SCO consciousness integrating those bits into a unified whole.
Beautifully put. And the meta operator oversees this whole dance. It's the higher order function, ensuring ARO and SCO stay in balance.
How does it do that?
It ensures coherence is perpetually transformed, never lost. Quantumly, it balances wave collapse, ARO, with the potential for wave restoration, SCO's domain. Cosmically, it allows stars and galaxies to form, fragmentation, but ensures the overall cosmic coherence fields maintain large-scale order. It prevents the universe collapsing into either static, undifferentiated unity or complete chaotic fragmentation. It keeps the cosmic breath going.
Okay, this is where it gets really exciting, I think. Applying this coherence lens to things we thought we understood. If coherence is the real invariant, then things like mass, space, energy, they have to be redefined. Let's start with mass. We usually think inertia, Higgs field.
Right. UCT essentially bypasses the standard Higgs mechanism, or rather sees it as an effect, not the cause. In UCT, mass is a coherence gradient.
A gradient, like a slope.
Sort of. It's not a lump of stuff. It's a localized condensation or stabilization of coherence. Think of it like a standing wave pattern in the background coherence field.
A knot of coherence.
A knot. Or standing wave, yeah. It's maintained within the universal invariant coherence background, which UCT calls hypergravity. We'll get more into that.
So mass is like a tension in this hypergravity field.
Exactly. The mass of a particle represents the degree of localized asymmetry, the reduced coherence that's stabilized against the pull of the background hypergravity. The denser the coherence knot, the stronger the gradient, the more massive it appears.
And inertia, resistance to change.
That's just the measure of how much effort it takes to disrupt that stabilized coherence gradient. It's about the tension, the structure, not intrinsic substance.
Wow, okay. If mass is a tension in a background field, then space itself can't be empty, can it?
Definitely not. In UCT, space is an active coherence lattice.
A lattice, like a scaffold.
An invisible scaffolding for reality, yes. It's a dynamic resonance architecture, structured by something called the vacuum coherence tensor, the VCT. Space isn't passive emptiness, it's an active medium.
So when we perceive distance or volume,
that's a projection of coherence relationships across this VCT lattice. Even dimensionality itself, 3 dimensions, for potentially more UCT, sees that as emerging in layers, hyperfractally, from the structure of this coherence lattice. Space is the physical expression of conserved coherence.
Which means energy, the thing we thought was conserved.
Mm-hmm.
Must be something simpler here.
Much simpler. Energy is just coherence flow.
Flow.
Directed resonance. It's the movement of coherence across those gradients we talked about moving through the lattice. Energy is only what you see when coherence is actively being transferred or transformed.
So conserving energy.
It's just observing that the amount of coherence involved in a specific flow or transformation stays constant. When potential energy converts to kinetic, the coherence is just changing its resonance form, but the total amount involved in the flow is conserved.
Okay, flow. And flow creates patterns. Which brings us to information. How does UCT see information? Not just bits and bytes, I assume?
No. Information is structured coherence. It's coherence taking on a specific geometric form or pattern.
Geometry.
Yeah. Think of it this way. Energy is the flow of resonance. Information is the pattern that shapes or regulates that flow. They're 2 sides of the same coin, really.
A duality.
An inseparable duality. Energy flow creates geometric patterns, information, and those informational patterns then channel or regulate subsequent energy flow. Think of DNA.
The genetic code.
Right. UCT sees DNA as a prime example. It's a geometric crystallization of coherence, information, that regulates the entire energy flow and organization, metabolism, structure of the organism. Same with neural firing patterns, information regulating energy flow in the brain.
Flow and pattern. Energy and information derived from coherence.
Yeah.
But what about time? Is it still just marching forward?
Not quite the steady march we imagine. UCT reframes time as coherence rhythm.
Hello.
It's the rhythmic modulation of coherence transitions happening across all scales, from quantum oscillations happening incredibly fast to the slow cycles of galaxies, because time emerges from these transitions.
It can't be uniform.
Exactly. It's necessarily layered. And it's coherence dependent. The rate of time depends on the local coherence dynamics.
Layered time. What does that mean practically?
Well, the time experienced by a quark is fundamentally different from the time experienced by a galaxy, but both are expressions of coherence rhythms at their respective scales. UCT defines the past as coherence that's already been reduced into a fixed pattern. The future is potential coherence, not yet reduced. And the
The
present
composition.
The present is the ongoing rhythm of reduction, ARO, and resonance, meta-operator. Our subjective experience of now, that feeling of time flowing, emerges when different resonance patterns, internal biological rhythms, external environmental rhythms, couple together coherently.
Wow. Okay, one last fundamental. Entropy. The universe running down, heat death. If coherence is conserved, that can't be the ultimate fate, right?
UCT says no, entropy isn't destruction of order, it's coherence dispersion.
Dispersion, like spreading out.
Exactly. It's the diffusion of localized, intense coherence patterns out into wider, more subtle resonance fields. It's a redistribution of order, not its annihilation. The order doesn't vanish, it just becomes less concentrated locally.
So it's like smoothing things out.
It's the universe breathing out, you could say, spreading coherence around. This dispersion entropy is balanced by processes that concentrate coherence, negentropy, like life, or those cosmic renewal mechanisms we touched on. So no heat death, just perpetual transformation.
Right. If you're going to redefine the absolute basics like mass, energy, time,
Yeah.
you're going to need a whole new mathematical language to describe it all. UCT claims it has one, coherence mathematics, and that it's an ontological necessity.
That's the claim, yeah, that the very nature of a coherence-based reality requires a specific kind of mathematics to describe it accurately. The math has to embody the invariant properties of this coherence vacuum.
Now, Lillian proposes some pretty complex structures.
Yeah.
Coherent symmetry group, CSG, chirality resonance algebra, harmonic resonance algebra, HR. It sounds dense.
It is mathematically sophisticated, no doubt. There are things like Noetherian Finsler numbers, NFNs.
Okay, instead of listing all the acronyms, what does this specialized math do that, say, the math used in general relativity or quantum field theory can't? What's the unique capability?
Good question. Traditional physics math often struggles to bridge scales, effectively connecting the quantum world smoothly to the cosmic scale, especially when things are highly dynamic or fractal. It also struggles with inherent directionality or chirality.
Right.
UCT's mathematics, especially involving structures like Finsler geometry and those NFNs, is specifically designed to handle invariance across scales and within geometries that have inherent twist or directionality, chirality, and torsion. It's built to describe how symmetry is preserved even as coherence patterns condense or disperse, or the geometry itself warps.
So it can map this multi-layered reality UCT describes.
That's the goal. Mapping the spectral layers, fundamental constants as resonance ratios, the tensorial layers like the VCT defining the space lattice, the topological layers dealing with complex knots of coherence, and even the probabilistic layers that model how the observer, ARO, selects outcomes. It's math designed for a dynamic, layered, coherence-based reality.
Okay, let's connect that map to the physics. The biggest physics claim seems to be redefining gravity. Not Einstein's curve of spacetime, but hypergravity.
Hypergravity is the proposed unifying background. It is the invariant coherent structure of the universe itself, the VCT lattice we talked about. Hypergravity is its inherent tension, its structural integrity.
So it's not gravity bending spacetime.
Why?
It is the structure that we perceive as spacetime.
Essentially, yes. It's the coherence background itself. And this, UCT argues, solves the huge problem of unifying gravity with quantum mechanics. Because the quantum fields aren't separate things interacting with gravity, they are simply local resonance patterns, differentiated expressions within that single underlying hypergravity field. The parts are already integrated into the whole.
And the geometry, the shape of this background, is the Finsler coherence hyperfractal phase space, FCHP.
Right. The FCHP is the topology, the mathematical space where reality unfolds. Think of it less like a smooth sheet and more like a multi-layered, infinitely detailed fractal structure, a hyperfractal.
Self-similar at different scales.
Exactly. And its geometry isn't just simple coordinates. It's intrinsically structured by chirality, that inherent left-right-handedness and torsion, which is like a twist in the fabric of the lattice. Within this dynamic structured FCHP, things like space, time, and even the fundamental forces emerge as localized coherence gradients.
So forces aren't mediated by particles anymore, like photons for EM.
In UCT, fundamental forces are emergent properties of the coherence field's geometry and its gradients. We don't look for force carriers so much as patterns of tension, twists, and flows within the coherence lattice itself.
Okay, if forces emerge from the geometry, what about the standard model forces we know? Electromagnetism, weak, strong forces. They come from those symmetries, U1, SU2, SU3.
UCT sees those gauge groups not as fundamental symmetries that got broken early on, but as stages in a coherence cascade.
A cascade, like a waterfall.
Kind of. Imagine the primordial coherence field, ZO, undergoing successive steps of reduction or condensation. Each step creates a new layer with different properties.
Okay, walk me through it. Layer 1.
Layer 1 is the simplest reduction associated with U1 symmetry. This manifests as electromagnetism and light. It's the most basic, dispersive form of coherence, flow, coherence spreading out.
Makes sense. Layer 2, SU2.
SU2 represents a deeper reduction. This step introduces chirality, that fundamental left-right asymmetry we see in the weak nuclear force. The geometry gets a directional bias here.
Okay, and layer 3, SU3, the strong force.
That's seen as coherence densification. A much more complex, tightly wound, torsional structure in the lattice emerges, which is what confines quarks together. What physics calls symmetry breaking is, in UCT, actually steps of localized coherence, condensation, and structuring.
Each step making things more complex, more structured locally.
Exactly, creating denser, more intricate resonance environments.
Does this cascade model predict anything beyond the standard model?
It does. UCT points towards a theoretical SU4 plus level. This is hypothesized as the next critical transition, a kind of coherence gravity gateway.
Meaning
It's the level where the properties of matter fields, the residues UCT identifies as dark matter, and the coupling to the underlying hypergravity field itself might become directly apparent or manipulable. It's the theoretical frontier beyond the known four forces, where coherence physics fully integrates with gravity.
Okay, let's scale this whole architecture up to the cosmos. UCT talks about the big emergence, not the Big Bang. What's the difference?
The Big Bang is usually pictured as a thermodynamic event, an incredibly hot, dense explosion expanding outward. The Big Emergence, in contrast, is framed as an information-first event.
Information first.
Yeah, a systematic, coherence-driven unfolding from that zero state. Imagine a fractal pattern emerging, a cascade of coherence reductions that laid down the fundamental dimensional scaffolds and the gauge field structures like U1, SU2, SU3 in an ordered way.
So structure came first, then energy and temperature.
Coherence built the framework, the rules, the geometry first. The energy density and temperature were consequences of that structuring process, not the primary driver. It was an unfolding, not just an explosion.
And looking at the universe now, the large-scale structure, the cosmic web, UCT sees that as part of this inherent structure.
Absolutely. The cosmic web isn't just gravity pulling random matter together. It's seen as the macroscale coherence scaffold. The filaments are like conduits for high coherence resonance flow, distributing it across the universe. The vast voids aren't empty. They're necessary balancing regions in the overall resonance structure.
And galaxies within that web.
Galaxies are viewed as massive coherence engines, almost like superorganisms. They have to constantly balance the internal fragmentation stars forming, exploding, with the overall galactic coherence needed to maintain their structure and rotation. They process and redistribute coherence on a huge scale.
Okay, this framework must have something to say about the big cosmic mysteries, dark matter and dark energy.
It offers interpretations, yes. Dark matter is proposed to be a form of coherence residue.
Residue.
Yeah, possibly fragments or remnants from earlier stages of the coherence cascade, or perhaps unreduced mass information potential locked in the hypergravity field. It doesn't interact much with the U1 layer electromagnetism light, but it does contribute to the overall hypergravity gradient, which is why we detect its gravitational effects.
So it's real, it has mass effect, but it's dark because it's stuck in a different coherence layer.
That's the basic idea. And dark energy, the thing accelerating cosmic expansion, UCT interprets that as the result of ongoing anisotropic hyperfractal dimensional expansion. As the coherence lattice continues its unfolding cascade into potentially deeper, more complex layers,
The whole structure expands.
the very resonance architecture of spacetime itself expands, creating an outward pressure. It's not a mysterious force field. It's the universe literally unfolding new layers of its own dimensionality, driven by the coherence dynamics.
This constant unfolding, this recycling, that brings us back to the cosmic renewal cycle. How does UCT explain the universe avoiding heat death?
Through active coherence, conservation, and recycling. Remember, entropy is just dispersion, not destruction, and the universe has built-in recyclers. black holes.
We think of black holes as sinks where things go in and don't come out.
UCT flips that view. Black holes are active coherence recyclers. Their intense gravity isn't just crushing matter, it's taking highly condensed, complex, fragmented asymmetry like the stuff left over from dead stars and effectively resymmetrizing it.
Resymmetrizing, like smoothing it back out.
Yeah, breaking down the complex structures and returning that bound coherence back towards the potential state, towards the Z-Oro substrate. They're portals cleaning up fragmented information.
Wow.
But there's another layer to it in the source material. Quasar hypercores. These are described as the engines inside active black holes, potentially operating at or beyond that hypothetical SU4 plus transition layer.
And what do?
They don't just recycle, they actively export negentropy. They process the infalling coherence and shoot out highly structured, usable coherence and energy in those massive jets we see coming from quasars.
So they're actively reseeding the universe with order.
Exactly. They prevent terminal coherence loss from the system. This whole cycle, emergence, stabilization, dissolution via black holes, and renewal via quasars is what keeps the universe eternally dynamic, according to UCT.
Okay, let's scale down dramatically now. From cosmos to life, UCT talks about metabiology. What's that?
Metabiology shifts the focus from just molecules and chemistry to studying life as coherence incarnate. It looks at the biologistics, the pathways and architectures of coherence flow that sustain living systems.
So life isn't just lucky chemistry, it's a concentration of cosmic coherence.
It's seen as a nested field architecture, where biological organization emerges from and is sustained by underlying coherence fields, drawing continuously from the wider cosmic fields. Life is a focal point of negentropy.
And how does this manifest at, say, the cellular level?
Cells are viewed as incredibly efficient, miniature coherence engines, constantly working to maintain local order. DNA plays a crucial role, but UCT gives it a dual nature.
Duality again.
There's the hologene in the field aspect of DNA, how it resonates and communicates non-locally, and the hologene, which represents the total coherence potential of the entire organism encoded holographically, not just the linear sequence of base pairs. DNA is seen as a coherence storage device as much as a blueprint.
Interesting. And inside the cell, what are the physical structures managing this coherence?
Two key players highlighted are microtubules and structured water. Microtubules aren't just cellular scaffolding. They form resonance pathways, like internal wiring for coherence flow.
And the water.
Inside the microtubules and surrounding proteins, you find highly ordered water, aquahel, sometimes called quantum water. It's not just loose H0 molecules. It's structured, almost crystalline.
What does it do?
UCT proposes it acts as a crucial coherence reservoir, a high-density storage medium for negentropy within the cell. It allows the cell to rapidly restore order if local coherence gets disrupted, like a built-in buffer against entropy.
And all these cellular coherence engines collectively create something larger, the biofield.
Exactly. The biofield is described as this multi-layered resonance shell surrounding the organism. It's generated and maintained by the interplay of all the cellular coherence activities, often reflected in measurable patterns like the bioelectric code.
Bioelectric code. Voltage patterns in tissues.
Precise voltage gradients across different tissues, yeah. These aren't just byproducts. They're seen as crucial regulators of the biofield structure and coherence, and concepts from traditional medicine like chakras.
Yeah. How does UCT see those?
They're reinterpreted not as mystical energy centers, but potentially as scalar field nodes or major resonance hubs within the biofield. Think of them as transformers or regulators, organizing the body's overall coherence architecture and mediating the exchange between the organism's internal fields and the external cosmic coherence fields. They have key points of resonance tuning.
Okay, putting all this together, mind, matter, cosmos, all linked by coherence. This has to radically change how we think about our own experience, right? Let's talk about qualia, subjective feelings, the redness of red, the taste of salt. Where do those come from in UCT?
UCT defines qualia as holographic projections. This is key. They don't exist solely out there in the object, nor solely in here in your brain chemicals.
Where are they then?
They emerge in the interaction between the observer's coherence field, remember the Orozco functions, and the resonance structure of the external world. The qual, the feeling, is that interaction pattern experienced holographically.
So my experience of red is the specific resonance pattern created when my Schiaro system interacts with the coherence pattern of light bouncing off a red object.
That's the idea. It's the relational pattern itself that constitutes the experience. And here's a fascinating implication. The theory suggests the richness or vividness of your qualia acts as a kind of barometer for your own internal coherent state.
How so?
When you're highly coherent, maybe focused, meditative, fully engaged, your subjective experience, your qualia, feel more intense, more vivid, hyper-real. But if your coherence is disrupted, say, through fatigue, illness, trauma, the qualia become duller, flatter, more fragmented. Your subjective world literally dims or brightens with your coherence.
Well, okay, wait. If my ARO function is selecting my reality from potential, and your ARO is selecting yours, does UCT imply there's no single objective reality out there that we all share?
Fundamentally, yes, that's the implication. Reality, at its base, is observer-dependent because each observer performs a unique coherence reduction.
So how do we agree on anything? How do we have a shared world?
The stable, shared world we experience, consensus reality, emerges only where our individual coherence reductions align, where different observers manage to essentially phase lock their coherence patterns and select overlapping sets of possibilities.
We agree on reality because our coherence fields are resonating together.
In a manner of speaking, yes. Where that phase locking is strong, reality seems solid and objective. Where it's weak or impossible, like potentially at the quantum level, before measurement you get paradoxes and superposition because different potential observer reductions haven't yet aligned into a single consensus actuality.
That idea of reality being stable only through collective coherence alignment, that's a massive philosophical jump. And it seems to be the basis for some pretty futuristic technology proposed by UCT.
Absolutely. If the fundamental invariant isn't energy but coherence, then technology should focus on manipulating coherence fields and gradients. The first example mentioned is coheraputers.
Coherence-based computers.
Yeah, computational systems designed to operate not by manipulating electrical charges or quantum bits prone to decoherence, but by manipulating resonance patterns within the coherence lattice itself, using the principles of coherence algebra.
The idea being they could bypass the decoherence problem that limits current quantum computers.
Exactly. By working with the inherent coherence of the vacuum structure, theoretically they could maintain computational integrity far beyond current limits. They'd compute using the universe's own resonant logic.
Okay, that's mind-bending. What are the propulsion? Hypergravity propulsion. Sounds like warp drive. UCT claims near FTL is possible without violating relativity. How?
It's proposed as non-Newtonian, non-relativistic transport, achieved by manipulating the hypergravity coherence gradients directly. The concept involves creating a highly localized asymmetric coherence bubble around the craft. Yeah, a sharp differential. You'd engineer, theoretically, a highly dispersive coherence state like the U1 layer at the front, and a highly condensing state like the SU3 layer at the back. This gradient difference creates a propulsive force by interacting with the background hypergravity.
You're surfing on a coherence wave you create yourself.
Sort of, and the key is stabilizing the payload inside this coherence invariant bubble. Because the craft remains phase-locked to the fundamental coherence invariance of the background field, not just the local warped metric, UCT suggests it avoids the massive relativistic mass increase that normally prohibits reaching light speed. You could achieve near-sea or potentially even apparent superluminal travel from an external viewpoint by manipulating the coherence field itself.
Okay, that's definitely out there territory. If these principles are universal, they must apply to society too. What would a coherent civilization look like?
It would be fundamentally different, organized around enhancing, not just consuming. Its core principle would be Generative building and maintaining coherence at all levels. This leads to ideas like resonant economies.
Resonant economies.
Where economic value isn't based purely on resource extraction or energy throughput, but on the degree to which activities generate, stabilize, or enhance coherence in ecosystems, in social structures, in knowledge. Things that cause fragmentation or unnecessary dispersion would be seen as costly.
And ethics.
Coherence ethics. Actions that enhance systemic coherence, integration, and resonance would be deemed ethical. Actions that degrade coherence, cause unnecessary fragmentation, or block resonant flow would be unethical or regressive. Governance would focus on aligning social systems with these coherence principles.
Fascinating. Okay, let's bring it back to the more immediate applications. Integral metabiology, IMB. This seems to be about applying the coherence model to health and healing.
Right. It's about diagnostics and therapies based entirely on restoring coherence in the biological system. Several prototypes are mentioned. First, the bioelectric blueprint editor.
What does that do?
It aims to map the body's natural voltage patterns, that bioelectric code we talked about, which represent the healthy coherence blueprint. If disease or injury disrupts that pattern, this device would, theoretically, use targeted fields to restore the correct voltage gradients, guiding the cells back to their proper regenerative pathways, restoring the blueprint to fix the structure.
Okay. Second prototype. It relates to that structured water.
The Aquachel modulator. This device would use specific frequencies, maybe light or sound, to directly tune the coherent state of the structured water within cells. The goal is to optimize that internal coherence reservoir, boost mitochondrial efficiency, and enhance the cell's overall resilience and negentropic capacity, basically tuning the cell's internal battery and hard drive.
And diagnostics. A new kind of scan.
The coherence tomograph, or CTG. Unlike MRI or CT scans looking at physical structure, the CTG would map the coherence field itself. It would look for disruptions, breaks, or distortions in the flow of coherence rhythm within and around the body in the biofield and its coupling to the local VCT.
Why is that useful?
Because the theory suggests coherence disruptions precede physical pathology. So a CTG could potentially offer predictive diagnostics, identifying the underlying field imbalances years before any structural disease actually manifests. It's looking at the informational level of health.
This entire framework, UCT, it's just staggering in its scope. It paints a picture of a universe where stable forms, being, are just fleeting patterns, but the underlying process, the flow of conserved coherence, becoming, is eternal.
It forces you to dissolve the boundaries we normally draw between physics, biology, cosmology, and even consciousness. They're all just different scales and expressions of the same fundamental coherence dynamic.
And it gives us, as conscious observers, a very different role.
A profoundly different role. If consciousness is fundamentally linked to the STO, the symmetry coherence operator, the engine of unity and integration, then you aren't just a passive spectator in reality.
I'm part of the machinery.
You are a fundamental mechanism actively involved in generating and restoring order. Your consciousness is, in this view, constantly working against dispersion, constantly weaving coherence back into the fabric of existence.
So the final thought to leave everyone mulling over. If your awareness, your SKO function, is actively generating coherence right now, and if the universe is this dynamic entity constantly seeking renewal through these coherent cycles, what new patterns, what new forms of order and coherence might you be contributing to the cosmic architecture just by being consciously present in this moment?
UCT suggests your own state of coherence isn't just personal. It's a vital, non-negotiable contribution to the ongoing creation and maintenance of reality itself. Something to think about.